You know what this is? This is popcorn. And you know what you do with popcorn? You eat it when you're about to watch something funny. Here on Ria Shack Radio, we're going to talk about what I think, several possible scenarios of what the FAA and the government in general is going to do about these pesky balloons. Coming up. So here is pretty much everything you need to know about balloons and amateur radio. So in amateur radio, a lot of people send up balloons for various reasons. One of them is basically to investigate the upper atmosphere. Some of them, and the most common use, is to send up little APRS trackers where they could track the balloon flight. Other people send up other payloads like antennas and repeaters and such like that, but those are limited. Mostly we're talking about balloons that just go up into the upper atmosphere and they float around and then they get tracked. W5KUB, who runs the Ham Radio Roundtable on his YouTube channel, he's had a number of balloon flights where he's been tracking his own balloons that have been going round and round and around the earth. Other people have been flying balloons outside amateur radio for purposes of photography, for investigating the upper atmosphere and such. Now, of course, lately you know about this Chinese spy balloon that has been accused of spying on the United States, and it has been basically taking a path, across the U.S. and possibly taking surveillance of sensitive military installations and such. And then there's been a bit of paranoia afterwards. So the U.S. military shot down the Chinese balloon. And then later on they shot down a few others. Apparently, and I can't confirm this for sure, one of them was an amateur radio balloon. Now, why is this important? Well, within the community, a lot of radio amateurs are now pretty much scared that they put up a balloon that's going to get shot down and, it's going to basically not end well for them. They might get in trouble and such like that. I can tell you from 2 life experiences what I think might be proposed. I'm not sure of the success of them, but I think we might see some things in the realm of government regulation. Again, this is just based on what I've seen and not necessarily what is going to happen. So the first one is, I think the most obvious, is that the government is probably going to ask for these balloons to be tracked in some way or the other. With drones, we've had where there has been increasing calls for something called remote ID. And remote ID is where the drone sends out a signal that can be received by law enforcement, and then they can determine who the owner of it is. The irony of this is that amateur radio balloons pretty much already have this in the form of APRS, but the government, if they were apply the same standard that they apply to drones, they might probably require some sort of broadcast. Something like ADSB, what you find on aircraft, right? So ADSB is where the aircraft sends out its call sign and GPS coordinates. The other one, probably in drones, they send out a serial number and then they send out a broadcast on Bluetooth or Wi-Fi or one of those types of signals. DJI has been, who is the preeminent drone manufacturer, also from China, they have been putting out drones with remote ID. And one of the things that has been happening is that the drones will not fly above a certain altitude unless they have that remote ID enabled. I don't know how you're going to do that with a balloon. There might be some, threat of fines or something else or some other thing. But I don't know how you're going to do that with balloons. They might try to regulate that in some way or the other. The other thing they might try to do is registration. I mean, if you have a balloon, you probably have to put some registration on it and some sort of way for the government to know whose it is. And any unknown object will probably just get shut down. So these are 2 things that can happen. I remember I came to the United States a little before 9/11 And I remember how much freedom we had compared then to now. And we began getting a lot of things, back then that were kind of like we've almost become used to it. And things like going through extensive airport security, pat downs, full body scanner, unless you have TSA pre-check, which means that you paid them some money. And they let you do that. You have to take your shoes off because one guy tried to, take down an aircraft with a shoe incendiary device and all sorts of stuff. Don't even get me started on guns, and because I can do a whole bunch of thing on guns. People who know me in the community. But, I really do think that there has been a severe overreaction to this. And apart from the fact that the balloon was shot down after it crossed the entire United States, this whole thing seems to, and this is another 9/11 security term that we use, security theater. It just seems like a whole bunch of security theater. The question is, what can you do about it? Well, if agencies are going to put out rules that will affect us in any way, I believe they might have to offer some public comment period. You might want to work with advocacy organizations to fight back and push back against any rules. Again, I'm not saying that they're going to do rules, but if they were to do rules, they would do it. And, at the same time, raise public awareness, show people that you use your balloons and your amateur radios for good. I talked about the Bouvet Island de-expedition where everybody was fighting among each other like a virtual on-air drunken brawl, and people transmitting on top of each other. I don't know what good example that sets for amateur radio, but maybe people watch out, maybe people don't. But if we set a good example, there's less chance that they'll come screw with us. And even if they come screw with us, we'll still be in the right. I don't know what the easy answer to this is. I think probably we should, at least be on the lookout for these sort of things. And in the drone community, we already got steamrolled with these remote ID rules. And we kind of can't take off unless we broadcast our location. And, inevitably some Karen is going to come and try to interfere with us in our drones. And they might do that with the balloons. Who knows? Anyway, this is Rhea. If you like the content, be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out my radio show on WRMI. That's 5050 Fridays at 2300 UTC, 6 p.m. Eastern or 5 p.m. Central. And you can also catch it on the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Until then, peace and 73s.